bedtime stories. Like and subscribe to boost your fortunes for today. From broke at 18 to CEO at 30. But her real story begins after that. They laughed at her sketches. They ignored her applications. They called her the waitress with a pipe dream. But Ava kept creating, between shifts, between heartbreaks, between hunger pains. Because Ava didn't want to be famous. She just wanted to be free. And this is her story. At 18, Ava moved to the city with 2 duffel bags and a dream she never dared to say out loud. She wanted to design clothes the world hadn't seen before. Not fashion for fame, but fashion that made people feel seen. She worked 2 jobs, diner waitress by day, delivery rider by night. In between, she sketched on napkins and junk mail. She couldn't afford fabric, so she stitched from old bed sheets and thrift store curtains. Art school? Too expensive. Internships? No one called her back. One night, a rude customer spilled coffee on her only sketchbook. She didn't cry. She grabbed a new napkin and kept drawing. Ava started cold emailing boutique owners, bloggers, even random stylists on Instagram. 99% never replied. The rest said no. She once borrowed $300 to rent a market stall for the weekend. She sold nothing. The second weekend, she sold 1 jacket for $80. The buyer? A tourist. That jacket later showed up on a small fashion blog, almost by accident. At 23, her mother passed away. Ava considered quitting, but something in her mother's last words kept echoing. You've already survived the worst. Now go live your best. She doubled down. She started sewing from home, filming her process on TikTok. One video went viral, not for her design, but for her honesty. Followers came, then orders, then copycats. But Ava stayed focused. Her style was hers, raw, functional, bold. At 26, Ava sold a trench coat to the daughter of a music producer. The coat ended up on the red carpet, and everything changed. Within months, she was featured in an online magazine. At 27, she opened her first studio, a 12 by 12 room with 1 sewing machine and 2 interns she paid from her own savings. By 30, Ava was running a sustainable fashion label with 15 employees, a storefront, and thousands of customers across the globe. But success came with shadows. Deadlines, investor pressure, media noise. She found herself designing less and managing more. One night, she sat alone in her big, glass office and realized she missed the napkins. Ava restructured. She promoted from within. She took a sabbatical to backpack through South America, where she lived with a community of weavers and learned to dye fabrics using plants. When she returned, her work changed. Simpler, earthier, more honest. She stopped chasing trends and started crafting legacy. At 40, she was mentoring young designers. She taught free online classes. She funded scholarships under her mother's name. But inside, she battled something quiet, burnout. She wasn't tired of designing. She was tired of being Ava, the brand. At 46, Ava stepped down as CEO. She passed the leadership to one of her earliest interns, a young designer who once showed up to work with stitched shoes and borrowed clothes. Ava had seen her younger self in her. She moved to the countryside, built a quiet home with a garden and a small studio. She still stitched, but only by candlelight, only when the mood was right. She wrote a memoir. It wasn't a bestseller. She didn't care. It was honest. She didn't want to go viral anymore. She just wanted to be real. At 60, Ava retired, not with fame or fanfare, but with a notebook full of sketches, a heart full of peace, and a life lived entirely on her terms. Ava never became the richest or the most famous, but in the end, her greatest creation wasn't her fashion label. It was a life she stitched together, thread by thread. Ava never pressured anyone to follow in her footsteps. But one person didn't need a push: Leona, her 13-year-old granddaughter. Leona would sit cross-legged on the floor of Ava's studio, watching, asking questions most kids never bothered with. Why don't you use patterns? Why does this color feel like sadness? Ava saw it instantly. That deep curiosity. The way her fingers touched fabric like it had a soul. It was like looking into a mirror of her younger self. So she began passing things down, not all at once. Just stories layered like stitches. Never copy. Always speak. If it's too easy, it probably isn't yours yet. So with your pain, but never sell your wounds. Leona listened. She sketched. She stayed up late experimenting, failing, crying, then trying again. Ava never interfered. She only left small notes tucked into drawers. This button belonged to my mother. Try turning the hem inside out. It'll feel more like you. Ava turned her studio into a shared space for Leona. They designed side by side. Ava on soft linens, Leona on bold denim and mesh. But while Leona learned the craft, Ava began organizing something bigger. Her life's work. Quietly, lovingly. A blueprint. A letter. A final pattern. She filled an old wooden box with hand-drawn sketches no one had ever seen. Fabric samples from every country she'd visited. A sealed letter titled, "To the one who still hears a thread." She gave Leona the key, but not the box. One day, when the noise is too loud, this will remind you who you are. Ava never spoke of dying. She just grew quieter. She walked slower, stitched less, smiled more. One afternoon, at age 74, she sat in her garden, wrapped in the quilt of her life, and closed her eyes under the sun. That evening, Patch, her old dog, barked twice and then lay beside her. When Leona arrived the next morning with fresh thread in her pocket, she found Ava still in her chair, peaceful, a smile on her lips, hands folded, gone. Leona inherited more than the studio. She inherited a way of being. She reopened a fashion label, but not as a global powerhouse. She called it Threadlight, sustainable, slow, honest, and in the first collection, she included Ava's final unpublished design, a jacket lined with fabric from Ava's garden dress. A small label stitched inside read, "For the girl who found her own way and still remembered mine." The box Ava left her? Leona opened on the night before her first solo show. She wept, not from sadness, but from recognition. Every sketch felt like a voice from the past whispering, "I'm still here." Ava didn't just leave a legacy of fashion. She left a lineage of courage, care, and creation. And somewhere, in every stitch her granddaughter makes, Ava's hands live on in the products she made, sold around the world for generations to come, all because she never gave up